we on? Oh my. Ah. Are we broadcasting? Check my audio levels. Yes, this is game. This is Guardians and Metal Exterminators. Hey everyone, Radical, Steven, Robocoop. How's everyone doing? Yeah, we're working on game today. So this was actually when I first announced this game. People were wondering why it was called that. I was originally just going to uh, leave it and let people figure out when they boot the game up and see why it's the acronym is game. Yeah. Hello everyone, I'm Jerrel. I'm the developer of the Silver Falls game series. Let's see, some housekeeping. Look, I'm really just shooting from the hip today. I've had a very demanding work month, the past month. Ghoul Busters, which is coming soon to the Nintendo 3DS. Nintendo is processing that right now. They're trying to get that out as soon as possible. That turned out way more demanding in terms of development than I expected, and that's partially, well, not partially. It's mostly because Ghoul Busters is 100%. It's a platformer. There's no gimmicks. You don't get wall jumping, double dashing, mom calling, dad slapping, air jumping, air dashing. None of that stuff. It's just a solid platformer, which means the dynamic and the interest in the game has to come from the level design and the tightness of the character controls. And it turned out that was way more time consuming than I expected. This is my first side-scroller game, and I didn't want to have to rely on gimmicks to make the game interesting. I wanted the levels to be exciting and fun. Every level brings something new and interesting to the table, and that getting those things right is time consuming because you have to play test a whole bunch. You have to keep fine tuning and you have to make sure everything works properly. And I wasn't working at 100% last month. I was absolutely exhausted from March getting the 7 games submitted to Nintendo. So Ghoul Busters took a little bit longer than I expected, but it's 100% done. And Nintendo's trying to get that out to everyone as soon as possible. So for everyone that's new, yeah, we have 3 Wii U games and 4 3DS games coming out, and all of these games are exclusive to the Wii U and 3DS. That's just my way to bring some excitement to the Wii U and 3DS. People have asked if I could bring them to the Switch later on. I'll wait until all the games launch, and I'll ask and see how the Wii U and 3DS owners feel, because these are the games for you guys, for the Wii U and 3DS users. And I don't want to pull the rug out from under you and say, oh, I'm putting them on Switch. So after the games launch, if people enjoy the games, I'll put a poll out. And I will ask people how they feel. And I would ask for our supporters, I would ask for their permission if they would be cool with bringing the games and bundling some of them in collections and bringing them to the Switch later on. But for the time being, I really just want these games to be special to the Wii U and 3DS. It's just, you know, this is for you guys. So. Hey, Zack, how's it going? Zack Smorf. So you got a Diddy Kong there. Nice. I like playing Diddy in Smash Ultimate. I'm not good with Diddy, but when I want to annoy people, I'll side B with Diddy all day long, and yeah, that's my that's my strategy with Diddy Kong. I'm a huge I'm such a big Sonic fan. I'm a big Sonic guy, but the classic Sonics. I grew up obviously with all the Sonics on the Genesis or the Mega Drive. Um, Actually really enjoy the advanced games, but that's one where I feel like the levels, you hit a lot of weird pitfalls and dead ends in the middle of nowhere. But overall, I really like advanced. I like playing as cream, and then cheesing the bosses with a homing chow cheese. So yeah, there's so much personality. And the animations in the advanced games are fantastic. It's great when you build up speed, you jump off a ramp, and then you press the shoulder button, the R button, and you do a trick in the air. Yeah, big fan of the Sonic Advance games. Um, EDG. So I've been advised that the eShop will accept. Um, oh right, for the credit cards, it'll stop accepting. So you can connect your eShop to your Nintendo ID, pardon me, and that will allow you to add funds to the Wii U and 3DS the same way that you add funds to your Switch. Um, and if you'd like, I'll link that in the description or the comments. I'll add that later on, and I'll post a guide on how to link those accounts, so that way you can still manage your Wii U and 3DS funds the same way you manage your Switch funds. You can do it through your internet browser. So there is that. But Nintendo has advised me that option is available only until the end of August. I think August 23rd, they said. It is a bummer that credit cards won't be accepted on the eShop, but at least they've given us an option to manage it the same way we manage our Switch, so it's not the worst thing in the world, really. Then, as always, let me know if the music is a bit too loud. I'm sort of monitoring my audio levels here, but if it is too loud, just let me know. Yeah, you're right. It's a tight time frame. It's a bit of a bummer. Um, and that's why Nintendo is really, they've been so cool. That's all I can say. The word that I would use to describe it is cool. They've been so supportive, and they've been, in a nice way, they've been nudging me along and saying, the time frame for you to earn any revenue with these games is closing in, so it would be good if you hurried up. So I know that they want me to bring these games out to people so people can enjoy them. Um, and they know that. They asked me if I understood what I was doing in terms of I'm bringing a game out that people will only be able to add funds into their account and buy for the span of a few months. They said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I said, "Yes." The reason why is that there are people out there that want to celebrate these consoles. It's going to bring positivity to the eShop, and that's why I'm doing it. And maybe that's why they're so supportive. They understand that I just want to bring something cool out um, for people to enjoy at the last minute here. So, but I am very grateful to Nintendo. It just rubs me the wrong way when people complain and say that Nintendo doesn't care. It's a big company, and any uh, company has a lot of different people working there and a lot of levels. But the people working in Nintendo, they really do care about the the people that support their products, and the fans of Nintendo, they do care. Yeah, absolutely. Let's I want the 3DS to go out with a bang. Sometimes I'll just be chatting with a friend, and then they'll mention, "Oh yeah, I was just playing my 3DS and this the other day," and I'm thinking, man, the 3DS really is a great console. Not only do you have a massive collection of 3DS games, you can play your DS games in there. Take your DS cartridge, pop that in there. Um, you've got a massive virtual console. You can play tons of different, well, not tons, that's an exaggeration. You can play a dozen plus consoles on the 3DS. You have all those 3D Classics collections and whatnot from Sega, Nintendo, and all those games are so cool. It's such a great console. I really think 3DS might be my favorite console. I'm looking at it. Yeah. Radiant Historia, Perfect Chronology. I haven't heard of that. I'm gonna have to look that up. That sounds really cool. Steven, well, you're not at work now. All right. Yeah, 10 p.m. Yeah. Yeah, the Switch is great, but I find myself, I'm opening up and being honest here. I think the only game I play on my Switch is Smash Bros. And I only play that as a social thing with other people, with friends. We can chat and hang out and talk, and we can play Smash Bros. There aren't um, right now there aren't really any games that I'm playing on the Switch, but also I'm so focused on development that there aren't really many games I'm playing on anything. That being said, I recently picked up a Wii U Mini. Check this out. I think this is around 50 US dollars. I'll power it on. I'm a big fan of this. Um, it's an open source software. It's an emulation machine. Um, you know, and it's got a cool little operating system and whatnot. And again, I don't condone piracy. I'm not a fan of piracy, but games that you own, try and play games that you own. Um, but I'm also trying to develop games to run on it across different retro handhelds. They all sort of have a slightly different firmware, different operating systems. So I'm using them to try and develop some games and then make sure I can get them running on these as well. But if you are into emulation, I highly recommend this. Buttons feel fantastic. Again, it was about 50 USD. I'm not sponsored, you know. I'm not going to start talking about Raycons and Raid Shadow Legends. Uh, but the buttons feel really fantastic. The only difficulty I find is it takes some getting used to. Because this is, on this console, you're not pulling down on the trigger. You know, normally you pull down on the trigger buttons, the shoulder buttons. On this one, you're actually pushing the console toward you, like that. So you have to get used to it. Like you kind of have to hold it a certain way, or you have to support pushing it because you're pushing it towards you. So again, it takes a little bit getting used to, but it really feels fantastic. I think the software makes it very usable. The performance has been great, and it just feels like such a premium device. For $50, you absolutely cannot go wrong. In that price range, nothing comes close to how great this is. The screen's fantastic as well. So yeah, if you guys are interested in that, I'm having a lot of fun with that. Guys, listen, you don't know how your government is tracking you. Your government doesn't want you to have Netflix. It's trying to ban you from watching your favorite shows on Netflix. But over in the UK, or, you know, in the Solomon Islands, they have stuff on Netflix that you don't have. And you know how you get around that? NordVPN. Let me go. Oh man, number of times. Usually you can guess when a YouTube video starts its segue, you can kind of guess this is going to be Raycon, this is going to be Vessi Shoes, it's going to be Raid Shadow Legends, NordVPN, Skillshare. The 3DS is a shockingly amazing emulation machine, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. The importance of these is not only are you able to continue playing games that are extremely difficult to obtain. A lot of us, uh, generally, as we move on through life in our 20s and we start our further education, our careers, it's very common to lose track of your childhood stuff. Whether your parents have a garage sale and get rid of your stuff, whether you get rid of your stuff to pay for your college books or your rent for your apartment in your early 20s, a lot of us lose our games from our childhood. That's just how it is. That's just how life is. And these days, do you really want to pay like $400 for a Game Boy Advanced, and then you want to track down a particular Pokemon game, but hey, guess what? People are charging $150 for that, and the only place you can get it is on eBay. That's not very fair, is it? Um, and these sort of machines make it so that we can preserve our game history, because I feel it's extremely important, especially when younger game developers are joining the industry, have no idea. They've never even heard of the games that I grew up with, when the games that I grew up with are quite instrumental to the development of our industry and where games are now. It's important to preserve that history as well and be able to, hand this to someone and say, hey, try some of these games that were made before you were born. And I often find that, I'll share games with younger people who have never played a Super Nintendo, and they'll say, hey, these games are really fun. Oh man, the screen on the Vita, fantastic. I've never seen the Vita, the version 2. Uh, I've never seen one in person. I have the the OLED one, and I think, man, this screen is so nice. A favorite 3DS games, someone asked me the other day, I was rattling them off. There's so many, I have a very hard time picking a few. But the two Resident Evil games on the 3DS, I think, are extremely impressive. They're really fantastic. They're a technical achievement, that's for sure. Let's see. Of course, Super Smash Bros. On the 3DS. I played a lot of that, and that's what broke my. Do I have it here? No, it's on my shelf. But the circle pad came off my first 3DS XL. That's what I used to play Super Smash Bros. And yeah, I can only use that 3DS for RPGs now because the circle pad broke off. I could repair it, but it's time consuming. I don't know how to do it. I would have to learn how to do it first. So if I did that, it would have to be after I finish all these games. Let's see, linear filtering. See, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, good. Let's see, generate my bitmaps. Yeah, let's do that. Well, actually, no. Well, I think in this situation I do want bitmaps. Yeah. So what was happening with the 3DS and why 3 Down Stars on new 3DS has so many crashing problems is so for that game has a massive amount of textures. So when your game has any sort of texture, it generates what are called bitmaps. And bitmaps are versions of your texture that are smaller in resolution. So that way, when your 3D object is farther from the screen, you'll see it get blurrier. If you have a look at the terrain here, it's a little blurry here and then a little sharper here. And that's because it's using bitmaps. So that's a lower resolution version of the texture. That's for performance reasons. There's no reason for an object in the distance to be, 4,000 by 4,000 pixels. But the problem with the 3DS, it has memory fragmentation. So everything that is loaded into memory kind of leaves a funny shaped hole, like in Tetris. And if you've got too many of those funny shaped holes, you won't be able to load, when you go to the next scene, you won't be able to load the next block of textures, and it causes the 3DS to crash. So it's taken me 2 years to figure out that, because there's no guide that says that. There's no one that was advising me in terms of 3DS development. So it was by working on these upcoming games, I was able to do a lot of trial and error, and I figured out just by brute force and trial and error, bitmaps were causing memory fragmentation. So I've gone through every single texture in 3 Down Stars. I've removed bitmapping, and now I can have actually higher resolution textures that look sharper, and they really pop on the hardware. They look fantastic, so the game looks better. And I finally fixed the crashing issues. So if you guys wouldn't mind helping me spread the word, because I know there are people that are still picking up 3 Down Stars. Even the past couple months, I've seen people say, oh, they've just picked up 3 Down Stars, they really enjoy it. I don't know if you guys are on any websites or any forums or anything, and if you see people that have just gotten into it, if you would help spread the word that I do have an update coming out that actually massively improves the game. The graphics are better, loading is much faster, and we fixed the crashing. Oh, after 2 years. Yeah, I've seen videos of people on the LCD Vita. They'll load in like an app that'll let them adjust the saturation so the LCD Vita looks a little better. But yeah, nothing really comes close to the OLED, does it? Yeah. So I'm hoping to release Ghoul Busters. I'm hoping we can bring that out into the eShop within a month. That would be the best case scenario. So, and Nintendo is working quite hard, and they're trying to get these games out fast. So we're working together on it to get them out as soon as it can be. But the game, Ghoul Busters, is done, so it's just really office work and paperwork now, and then getting that onto the shop. Yeah, absolutely. So with 3 Down Stars, because it doesn't use MIP mapping anymore because I've disabled MIP mapping on 3 down stars. I leave the textures at full resolution. So there are certain spots where I've really only noticed one area where the performance is a little worse, and that's when you're in the middle of the town, the very large area that's got all the houses and everything. If you're standing in a certain, like, one end of the map and you're looking across the entire map, the performance will be a little worse than it was in the original. But every single other area in 3 down stars, the performance is going to be way better. I've also made other optimizations as well, so overall, the performance is just going to be a huge, huge improvement. Luna Knights, hey, what's up? How's it going? All right, so what type of game is game? So the main game mode in game is yeah, it's an action RPG. And the RPG is you're not going through a big you're not like exploring town to town and whatnot. The RPG aspects are there's a huge amount of skills and equipments and character growth and customizing your character loadouts. And you mix and match different weapons to get different skills. The weapons have skills attached to them, so you want to keep just completing missions, and then you'll get weapons. And if you complete extra objectives with the missions, your weapons that you earn will have a skill attached, and they can really make a massive difference. They can really boost certain actions. There's a bunch of different playable characters in game. I've got a call here, but it's most likely spam. I only ever get scam callers now on my phone. Wii Shop channel, how's it going? Right. So I'll share this. No one's looking. It's just us. It's just me and you guys. So when you're playing the game here, you can actually you'll be able to play as monsters. So you can play as humans. They have their skills and weapons and whatnot, and then you can also play as monsters, and they all have all their own equipment and skills. So they have their own camp. But just between you and me, when you select the monsters, it goes to the enemy camp. The enemy camp is right there. You never see it in the game, obviously, but they're actually, programmatically, they're right next to each other. That just saves on space and programming. And then when you're in the enemy camp, managing your stuff there, you're actually just moved back like 30 feet from the humans' camp. But of course the camera doesn't let you go down that far in the game, so you never actually see how close the enemy camp is. But now you guys know the secret. You've looked behind the curtain. Let's see here. Let's see, I'll have a resolution check on that. 256, 256? How's that look? Actually, can I bring that up? 64, oh, 256. Let's see. There we go, that's better, isn't it? So what happened with 3 down stars, and this is an example of Nintendo coming in for the save. I was working on Guardians and Metal Exterminators. This game's been in development for about 1.5 years. And I was creating Guardians and Metal Exterminators to run on original hardware, original 3DS and new 3DS. Something happened at the last minute when I was trying to submit the game to Nintendo, and I realized at some point in development the game stopped working on original 3DS. It wouldn't boot up. Or it would boot, but it wouldn't get past the title screen. And this is at the end of March, and I was trying to get 7 games submitted in March. And I burned like 3 days on Guardians and Metal Exterminators trying to get it to run original hardware, and I ran out of time because I was still working on the other. At that point, I had 4 other games to finish, and I just had to call it. And I said, I can't get this game working on original hardware, and the game was registered with Nintendo to work on original hardware. So if you tell them, if you registered it to work on original hardware, it has to work or else they won't accept it. And I said to them, look, guys, I've messed this up. I've promised this game, you know, I said I would submit it to you. I promised it to the 3DS users that are waiting, and I said, I've stuffed up. I can't get it to work on original hardware anymore. And it was too late to register a new game code. Nintendo stopped accepting new game codes a long time ago, and you can't just change the way that your title's been registered. And I said, look, I've stuffed up. I accept it. I'm gonna have to cancel this title, you know. And then Nintendo came back to me, and they just said, you know, hold on, um, we'll register a new game code for you so you can submit it. And I was floored. I couldn't believe it because, you know, that they stopped accepting new game codes. I shouldn't have been able to register a new game code, but I think Nintendo understood the amount of effort that I'm putting in to bring these games to the hardware. And that's just an example of they didn't need to do that. It was a lot of extra work for them because they finished registering game codes. You know, they really shouldn't have gone out of the way, but they did, and I'm so grateful to them for that, because now this is a game that I think is really special to the 3DS. I don't know of anything that really plays or feels like it, and I think it's a way we can um, keep having fun with the console, because it's designed for you to be able to just play 5 to 10 minutes here, even a couple weeks. You can pick it up later on and then have a lot of fun with it even then. A couple weeks later, play even more. You don't have to worry about a big storyline that you get lost in. Like if you put a game down for a few weeks, you forget where you're supposed to go and you can't play anymore. Um, Guardians and Metal Exterminators is supposed to avoid that. You have a central hub, you access all your missions from the hub, you can play while you're on the bus or on the train. Is the FPS playable on old 3DS for Ghoul Busters? Yes, yes. Pierce, how's it going? So, yeah, Nintendo really pushed me to try and get that game running as well as it can, and it's very smooth on the original hardware. It's you, it's better on the new hardware because the new hardware is quite stronger, of course. But I made a massive push in development last week to make sure that Ghoul Busters is running well on original hardware. I was testing it on the actually. Yeah, I'll show you how it runs on 2DS, and you can see. Let's see, you can inject your old GBA, GBC games and stuff using custom firmware. See, that's very cool, you know? Being able to play your favorite games, I think the more that you can play on your 3DS, the better. It probably is my favorite console, you know? I was Team Super Nintendo for most of my most of my life. I would say I was Team Super Nintendo. It had all my favorite RPGs on it. The original PlayStation would have been a very close second for me in terms of favorite console, because again, that had, you know, you got 3 Final Fantasies on the PlayStation. You've got a ton of RPGs in there. You've got Tekken 3. You've got all those, you know, you've got Dance Dance Revolution. You got Bust a Groove. Shoot, you've got everything on the original PlayStation. All right, let's see. Let me just boot this up here. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Nintendo, the people that work at Nintendo are really fantastic. They really actually do care about people. Ooh, ah. Okay, look, I'm gonna... Uh-oh. I'll bring that up to the screen. You can see how smooth it looks, but I can't see. I'm trying to look at the reflection in my webcam, so I can't actually see what I'm doing. I can't see. I don't know if that's too close, actually. Oh, I died. Oh. Sorry, I can't see. You can see how smooth it runs on the 2DS. I'm dying because I'm trying to play it without seeing it. Okay, here we go. Believe in myself. Take that. Take that. Anyway, there you go. Yeah. I have in terms of RetroPie, I have the Pi Boy DMG, and I use that. I generally leave that plugged into my TV with HDMI. I use PlayStation 4 Bluetooth controllers with that. Fantastic. That's a great way. I get screen tearing on that once in a while. Maybe there's a setting I have to adjust. I don't really have time to tinker. Um, but yeah, I have the Pi Boy DMG. RetroPie is such a great setup. I really like the interface. Yeah, Radical R. So, why the 3DS and Wii U? I feel they're very exciting. They both have very interesting, we can call them gimmicks. But they're not just gimmicks, they're core features that allow developers to be creative. But in order to be creative, you have to have the freedom to be able to take risks and to invest in those creative risks. And I was disappointed that developers, this is coming from a gamer, I was disappointed that developers didn't make more creative games that took advantage of what the 3DS and Wii U were designed to do, especially with the gamepad. I was very disappointed, um, as the years wore on, and we were seeing that we're not really getting anything that interesting in terms of using the gamepad in a cool way. I'm just adjusting my texture resolutions here. And so that's why I feel quite strongly about the Wii U and 3DS is this is it. We're not going to have any more opportunities to see games take advantage of the Wii U and 3DS hardware. So I want to at least try to create games that use those consoles to their maximum potential. And that's why I'm working so hard on the Wii U and 3DS. There's not a lot of time left to do it either. But it's fun. That's the thrill of the chase. It's exciting. If you know that there's a chance that your game can escape, that's when hunting is exciting. All right. And again, what happened was originally Guardians and Metal Exterminators was supposed to be on both original 3DS and new 3DS, but now it's specific to new 3DS because Nintendo actually saved Guardians and Metal Exterminators. But that means now I can actually make the texture resolutions higher now. I have a lot more video memory. So I'm just going through now. I was just shrinking everything down so it would run on original hardware, but now I don't have to worry about that. And of course you want to remove your bitmaps. Yeah, Zombie U was such a cool example of what you could do with the gamepad. And I was thinking, bare minimum, at least if you're porting a game, from the Xbox or PlayStation, and you're putting it on the Wii U, at least put the character's inventory on the bottom screen. Put a map down there, put the inventory system so I can just use the touchscreen to manage my items. That's all I wanted. I wasn't asking for the moon, There we go. Actually, I think I can afford to have this at a higher resolution now. Oh no, see. So I know from experience. So right now this resolution is 256 by 256. I know that if I bring that up to 512 by 512, it's going to put a bit of a strain on the memory of the 3DS because the game has to load in the different playable characters. So in general, any kind of game that's designed in Unity, it's a very bad idea to create objects and then destroy them while the game is running. You're going to cause memory problems on platforms like the 3DS. So with Guardians and Metal Exterminators, it loads absolutely everything into one chunk. That means there's no loading in between the missions and going back to your campsite. So it's very fluid. It's very fast to play. All the enemies exist like off screen, and then they're loaded in when they're needed. The only objects that are created and destroyed are when your character needs, when you change your equipment, your character brings in new weapons, it destroys the old one, and also the player characters themselves. So that means I have to make sure the texture resolutions on those objects don't occupy too much space in memory, because then if there's any memory fragmentation which can still occur, that's what causes crashes, like we saw in 3 Down Stars. But again, I've largely fixed that problem in 3 Down Stars, so I'm very excited. I really can't wait to get that update out. Oh, yeah, I played Affordable Space Adventures with a friend. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Fatal Frame? Oh no, I didn't get to play the Fatal Frame on Wii U. What is Super Smash Bros? You know, Super Smash 4 3DS and Super Smash 4 Wii U. I like to take the 4 and then put it in the Smaforsh. It's kind of like how they made Fant4 you know, the Fantastic Four, but they put the 4. If they put the 4 in the middle of the Fant4, I'm gonna call it Fant4. Yeah. Hi, MiiWii Arts. It's taken me. I worked on 3 Down Stars for more than 2 years. Probably close to 3. And before that, I was learning 3DS for about 2 years. There's a massive learning curve to it if you're using Unity. I haven't tried using any other game framework for 3DS, but there's so many quirks to it that it's taken me this long. I finally found a solution to get 3DS 3 Down Stars to be stable. Okay. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm getting my I'm increasing texture resolutions on everything because now I have the opportunity to make textures a bit higher resolution. But again, also I'm removing bitmaps, which makes the game more stable. It makes everything load faster as well. And I actually haven't... I mentioned in my video last night, I submitted the original version of this game, of Guardians and Metal Exterminators. I submitted that to Nintendo, and the game didn't even have its own soundtrack. It was using 3 Down Stars soundtrack. So this week I'll be working on... I should be able, I would say within probably 3 to 4 days, I should be able to get the whole soundtrack done. So I'm really looking forward to that. I really enjoy working on soundtracks for different games, because it allows me to explore a different sound space and try to create a particular sound for each game. Every game I want it to have its own identity in terms of the soundtrack. Okay, I'm just making sure everything has MIP mapping disabled. I'm looking off screen as well. I'm not ignoring you and just texting. I'm working off screen. Alright, so disable your MIP maps there. So I'll bring in a character model. We'll see. I'll show you what it looks like when I'm setting up a character. So Oxa is our leading lady here. Smaforsh for Wii U, Smaforsh for 3DS. Oh, sorry, Steven. Yeah, sorry, I was gabbing away there. I wanted to create a studio name that sounded like a game studio that would have come from the late 80s or early 90s. And often those names were sort of portmanteaus of things that had positive connotations to them. If you hear the name and you split it up into its individual pieces, it sounds like kind of something that you recognize, and they kind of have a positive sound to them. So I thought the sun is something that is generally related to something, you know, it's quite positive. It's something that we kind of need to live, so we kind of like the sun. And grand is something that's big, good, positive. So, big sun. I'm just double checking her texture resolutions. Actually, because I now can do higher resolution textures, I can actually restore this texture resolution is supposed to be... let's see now. Hold on. It's supposed to be this. There we go. That's what it's supposed to be like. Yeah, we got it. I actually had a lot of fun creating her earrings. I actually always have a lot of fun creating jewelry for the female characters. I do research, like I'll look up, I don't have fashion magazines, you know, I'll look up fashion stuff online. I try to pick an era. For each character in 3 Down Stars, if the character wears jewelry, I try to create a particular style for them. So if I need to create a new outfit for that character, I'll know, oh, that character they like this style of jewelry, they wear this particular thing, or they have a visual motif. And this game is set in the 80s, so I was looking up 80s jewelry for ladies. That was quite fun because it's a blast from the past. We dressed very differently in the 80s, so it was pretty fun to try and create something. I wasn't copying any particular design. I was just trying to style match the era in terms of the design philosophy for jewelry. Radical R. Yes, yeah, I do all the work myself. The 3D modeling, the texturing, the artwork, the soundtrack, the planning, the marketing, the story, programming. Yes, I do all of that myself. Yeah, absolutely. The texture sizes are a big deal. On the 3DS, you have to be extremely careful. And I save, like if I need a texture to be 512 by 512, I'll only do that for very specific things. For example, in 3 Down Stars, a Holt's jacket, it has to be 512 by 512. If it's not, it's just going to be blurry and muddy. You won't be able to read the text. And again, I'll just quickly flip back because Oxa, in this game, in the scenes that have like story bits and certain camera angles, you'll see her clothes close up, or any character that you have, you'll see close up. And so if you have a lower resolution like that, it's very apparent, and it's a little jarring visually. So for things like that, it's important to have a higher resolution. So you have to pick your battles. You know, not everything can be high resolution, but certain things they really have to be. Things like the socks. That's where you can save your space. You know, if my grass is in the way here, my grass mesh. Let me move here. If I have a look here, I wouldn't be surprised if this is 16 by 16. It's 32 by 32, but you never even see it. I'm gonna go ahead and trim that down to 16 by 16. Okay. Okay, and her shoes are 64 by 64. Again, I need to make sure my mip maps are off. So yeah, this is. You guys can feel free to chat as much. I'm happy to focus on chatting actually, because what I'm doing right now is I'm just going through all of my textures. I'm just adjusting the resolutions, and I'm disabling mip maps on everything. As I explained, mip maps on the 3DS actually causes memory fragmentation. So what I'm doing right now isn't really demanding, so we can just chat about whatever games you want. Yeah, also, I am also working on our upcoming free games as well. So I'm working on Silver Falls Pocket, which will be our Nokia game. You can play it on your old Nokia mobiles or your LG. I'm trying to see which old Sony phones it'll work on as well. And then that will likely, it depends, because it seems like people are really interested in that. So I might actually do that this year instead of next year. And I'm actually looking forward to that because it's Silver Falls Pocket is a sequel to Ghoul Busters in terms of the main characters. The main characters in Ghoul Busters, they're grown up, and they're the 2 main characters in Silver Falls Pocket. You're a snob for high definition socks. Well then I suppose I've lost points in your book then. If you demand high resolution socks, I guess I've disappointed you. Hey Steven, it's great to hang out and have a chat. Yeah, take care. We'll see you again soon. Yeah. See you, Steven. Yeah, I usually uh, Radical R. I usually do uh, weight training a few days out of the week. I do body conditioning, usually 4 days during the week. I really enjoy hiking. Uh, Lately, I've been doing biking, go to the beach, bike, hop in a rock pool, and go swimming. The past 2 months now, I haven't done any of that because I'm so pressed for time. And the problem is, I've been eating a lot of Cheetos. I'm not proud of the amount of Cheetos that I've consumed in order to sustain my life force so that I can keep working on these games. Um, yeah, working on this many hours, especially when the work is very difficult, it can be quite disheartening. Uh, and unfortunately, one thing that really keeps me uh, positive is if I'm getting really bummed out on a project and development is dragging on, it's not going my way. Sometimes I'll just go and eat a bag of Cheetos, and then it cheers me up, and then I can work faster and more efficiently. Uh, but I'd actually gone maybe 7 or 8 years without even eating um, chips or Cheetos or anything like that. But it was really March that really pushed me. Um, Especially, I was getting really bummed out, especially when I realized that Guardians and Metal Exterminators stopped working on original hardware, and then I burned 3 days trying to fix it and I couldn't fix it. That's the kind of thing that really, it sort of bummed me out. Okay, let's have a look at Go. So for anyone that's sort of interested in the game development side, I sort of mentioned this before, but I'll just share a bit more if you haven't seen it. So the way that I design my games now, this is after years and years of developing games and creating frameworks. Um, what I do now is I have the player logic. This is all just messy. Don't worry about this. Um, the logic for the player always exists in the room. Everything that's required to move the character around, to control them, to interact with objects, to attack, all of that always exists. There is never a situation where the character object does not exist. Uh, you can see here I have player template, right? And so what we need is a visual representation. So the game logic will, when the room starts up, it will check which character you have selected, and it will take what I call an auditionee. An auditionee is an object that stores all the visual representations of your character. So the auditionee does not actually perform the logic. The auditionee is just a visual representation of what the logic is doing. The actual logic is here in your player template. So that means that um, there's zero chance that anything can go wrong if the game is looking to reference the player, but the player hasn't been created yet. They haven't been added to the room yet. That could cause huge problems, especially with Unity. Oftentimes Unity will actually, behind your back, it'll change the order in which scripts execute, and that causes huge problems, especially when you have a game working, you're building it to your game platform, everything's working, and then one day all of a sudden the game stops working entirely, it just crashes. A lot of that often comes down to Unity behind your back just changing the order in which scripts execute, and unless you explicitly state which scripts execute in which order, that can get jumbled up and you have no control over it again. And it's a very clunky system that they have in order for you to be able to manage which scripts or execute in a particular order. So by creating a game this way, there's zero chance of that occurring. And I actually feel like this is a very clean way because now I only program the logic once. Now, if I wanted to create a 4-player game, I can duplicate it, and now I have 4 players. That means also have I can have 7,000 playable characters. You know, they're all different. And let's say, uh-oh, I need to adjust logic on all of them now. You could really mess things up if all of them had their own logic. So it becomes a scale issue as well and a management. issue, because now it's very difficult to manage that. So because the auditionees don't have their own logic, the game is much easier to manage. Now I only need to change the logic in one object, and that fixes everything. That means that I don't have to go and do that 1,000 times for all the other characters. So, and the reason why I use the word auditionee is I think of it as a movie. You know, you have actors in a movie, but the actor, there has to be an actor in the movie, but it could be any actor. So who do you cast to be the actor? Well, you audition people. So people that go in to audition for a role, they're called auditionees. You pick one auditionee, if they're the right one, they will be the actor. And that's why I use the word auditionee. Oh, radical R. Yeah. You can specify the script order, but in a game, you could have hundreds of scripts. I'll show you what it looks like. It's not NDA locked. This isn't specific to like Unity for 3DS or Wii U. It always looks like this in Unity. So this isn't, you know, non-disclosure thing. This is normal. Okay, I'll show you what it looks like here. So in Unity, this is called your script execution order. The problem is my games could have, you know, 200 scripts, which means you have to drag and drop your scripts, and you're going to have them all ordered like this, and you have to drag and drop them and move them around. It's extremely clunky. It's not a good system for specifying that. So with this, it's the important ones you specify which order they go in, because you have to like drag and drop and move them around. It's important that these scripts are executed in a particular order, but anything else, it's a free-for-all. It's the Wild West as far as Unity is concerned. It could jumble up whatever order it executes the scripts in, even between you know, when it's running the games. I've noticed that behavior where it'll work great sometimes, and then all of a sudden it'll just say, no, I think I'll change the order that the scripts are run this time, and it causes massive instability. Regan Blasphemous, you ever use scriptable objects to synchronize properties between auditionees? No, I don't. I use scriptable objects as I personally only use them as like a database functionality. So say for example, let's see like this, because the prefabs will all store their own properties. So let's say I'm trying to not accidentally show anything here. Let's see here. So let's say I want to create a new character. So I'll right click, I'll create, I'll go to Guardians, and I'll say playable character. And then, you know, this is, can I just rename this real quick? What's happening? What's happening right now? Why won't it let me rename? I'm clicking. Anyway, all right. I'll go to my inspector, which I accidentally closed. Inspector. So I've highlighted that character, and I'll say this is Tom Cruise as Tony Stark. There we go. And that's how I use scriptable objects. I can define their health. So for me, it's like a database thing. Then you can adjust your stats that way. There you go. And then also, this is where I specify the auditionee. Tom Cruise as Iron Man, and that way the game, when the game references this character and it says, okay, your selected character is this guy, it can load the resource in based on the file name. So I don't reference the object because that actually loads all of the objects into memory. When you have limited memory, that's just going to cause the game to crash, and there's no reason to load the object into memory unless you're actively going to use it just then. So yeah, game development it's challenging. It's a puzzle in itself. But that's the fun of it, you know. Um, when you see games that are made, especially decades ago, it's you have to respect and admire what people were able to accomplish, especially considering that the technology we have now makes things so much easier. Back then, it would have been much harder, you know, uh, especially in the Atari, the NES days. I can't even imagine how difficult it would have been for people. You ever experiment with newer addressables system along those lines? Unsure whether it's compatible with 3DS and those other consoles. Um, I've not heard of addressables. Um, I'll look it up and see. I'm not familiar with the term. Again, I'm always learning new things as a developer as well. Um, that I'm not familiar with the term, so maybe it's something that's added in a different version. I've not used it. Let me look it up real quick. Let's see. Let's see. It's a way to load assets. Oh, cool. Right, it's like a sort of an asset management, asset loading. Um, I have tried using asset, what are they called? Asset packages or whatnot. You know, the loading assets and from an asset package or whatnot. I did uh, try to get that working properly with 3DS, but it wouldn't work properly. It was an absolute nightmare. From a scalability issue, it's an absolute mess. It's not well designed. It's just a nightmare to work with. And it turns out that using, if you're familiar with Unity, it turns out using resources.load is the exact same thing as that. So you're you're wasting your time depending on your project because it clutters your workflow and it makes things an absolute nightmare in terms of management and scalability. Once your resources start increasing, and if you're constantly adding or changing or removing things, it becomes a nightmare. So I have tried to use whatever they're called, asset packages or whatnot, but it turned out it wasn't helping me for my projects. It was actually making things worse. So I generally, for this, I just use resources.load. That seems to work most reliably on the 3DS. Yeah, Unity is, yeah, asset bundles. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, thanks, Reagan. Yeah. Um, look, anything that is a challenge is worth doing. You know, uh, and I can't complain because without Unity, I wouldn't be able to make these games. Sure, of course, it can be improved, and sure, it's only, you know, um, sure they don't really focus on improving the features that the users have been asking for, but again, Unity is a company. They're a, you know, their business is making money, so they've got to make their investors happy, their stakeholders. They've just got to do what they're asking. So you can see that the massive difference. This is Gold Prospector. You can see the massive difference once I increase the resolution on his shirt. This is actually my window's gone, so I'm just going to move it here. Um, if this was going to be running on the old 3DS, it would probably be like that because there's so many resources in the game. On new 3DS, it could comfortably have textures like that. Okay, and then his pants. Let's see. See, this is where you have to just make um, conservative decisions because that's 256 by 256. I think that looks perfectly fine. For his pants, I really don't believe there's a reason you should have to use 512 because that's 512 by 512. The camera, I know it's never going to get that close, so I'm perfectly fine having 256 by 256. In this situation, it actually helps the details stand out more because there's less pixels that it's trying to show. So in this situation, I will leave his pants at 256, but his shirt definitely looks best with 512. All right, just going to make sure my bitmaps are off on this guy. Okay, see his shoes have bitmaps on. I'm going to turn that off. Luna Knights, where is Slim? It's the 80s, so I wonder where Slim is at this point. Uh, I'll I'll give you a hint. I mean, obviously, I don't want to spoil it. Slim isn't living in Silver Falls at when this game is taking place. He's away for work. Let's see. So his mustache is 64 by 64. I think that's fine, actually. Because increasing the resolution won't actually help. There you go. Let me check his hair. I think his hair and his mustache, yeah, they're 64 by 64. No maps. I'm just going to check Oxa's hair. Is that really 64 by 64? Wow, okay, that's not bad. Oh, see, so here's how I can use a 64 by 64 texture and make it look like it's a higher resolution than it actually is. It's such a simple thing. Let me bring my inspector over. I'm actually just increasing the tiling. So if I didn't tile her hair, it would look like that. So that clearly is a low resolution hair. It doesn't look good. This is just such a basic, simple trick. You can tile it by 4. I've experimented in general, based on how far the camera is and how close it gets. Tiling it by 4 looks best on the hardware. And this is, you know, this is a thing, a trick that artists have employed for decades in game development. So his is dialed at 3. I'm going to put it at 4 and see. See, at that point, it's a bit harder to tell the difference between the lines, so I think it does look best at 3. I'll just have a look at 2. See, 2 is good for the mustache, not for the hair. I'll just leave it at 3 then. That looks best. Check the skin here. Yeah, see? Alright, so you've got 256 by 256 there. Move my inspector over. Yeah, that's a good, strong mustache. It's the 80s, you've got it, you know. Let's see. Are we going to see the outcome of Romanik in the upcoming games? Yeah, we will. We will. So, you know how there's a section... Oh, I don't want to spoil it. In episode Prelude, but the last section. That takes place during 3 Down Stars. The stronger his mustache is, the more damage he'll do. He has a higher damage output. Yeah, things look different in the editor than they do on hardware, which is why it's important to spend a lot of time with the hardware to make sure. Sometimes you're just going to have to make educated guesses in the editor and then run it on the hardware, and then it'll end up looking like how you guess it would. Yeah, Radical R, the Game Boy game can code link with the other games. The novel that we have 3 or 4 chapters left, but when I launch the paperback, that will actually have a code system that links with the game so you can unlock content using the book. Let's see, he doesn't have any jewelry. I was kind of considering giving him like 1 piercing. I mean, it's the 80s, you know, so I was thinking giving him a hoop maybe, but he's kind of more of a conservative character, so I was thinking, no, that, you know, even though he is 80s, I don't think he would have an earring. Going ahead and apply that. See, I'm just going to check the texture resolutions on her earring. I'm such a fan of this, actually. The 80s has such a fun, distinct look. Okay, good. Good. Check my textures. Good. Alright, now I'll check my other characters. Okay, no one's looking? No one's... Okay, guys, this is just between us now. No one else is here. No one's gonna see the spoilers, alright? Here we go. No one's looking, it's just us. This is Karn from Three Ounce Stars Luna Nights. You know, you'll recognize Karn. He was carrying the box with crystals in it by the motel. Let me fix his shirt. Again, I made a low resolution version of his shirt for to run on original 3DS hardware. I don't need to worry about that anymore. Let's see. So I think I actually, yeah, I made that a low resolution thing. Let me just change the, yeah, I am going to, I've got to restore the high resolution version. So what I did was I manually edited. You can, there's two ways to reduce resolution of your textures. Often the most practical way with Unity, and anyone familiar with Unity will know, you just change the settings in the editor, but that ends up with a very muddy and blurry texture. So you end up with a much better product if you edit that texture externally. So I always have a backup of my high resolution textures. So what I'm just going to do is I've got a 1024 by 1024 here, and I'm just going to bring that back here. 512, there we go. Let me think, because okay. I'll fix it more later. I have to bake in the normal mapping and the ambient occlusion. For now, I'll just restore the 512 by 512. So right now I'm off screen resizing this. I'd like this shirt at 512 because I think this tie-dye is majestic. I think it would be a waste of something beautiful to not have it be 512 by 512. There we go. And then what I will do again is, oops, okay, that's gone. That's gone real funny. All right, again, we'll go here. Oop. So that's the renderer. We want to select our 512. Let's see, cool. I have maps off. And there we go. That looks, yes. That's my tie-dye guy. I think the headband uses the same texture as well. Yeah, I created the headband so it can share the same texture. Cool, 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 cool. His pants, let's see if I've manually modified that or not. And actually what I need to go, I'll do it now while we're on development. I need to remove the skinned motion vectors, as that reduces performance, and I don't need it. And also I need to remove shadows. For some reason, Unity 3DS, even though it doesn't support shadows, it'll still be affected performance-wise if you have that clicked. And then you want to disable your motion vectors as well, and that ensures everything has the best possible performance. Okay. Right, I also need to check all of my textures. You see how this is RGBA, so it stores alpha information if you need part of your texture to be transparent. I don't need it to be transparent, but it looks like I've manually reduced the resolution on that. I'll have to go back and find my my backup. I don't have the backup of the 1080 in the project. I'll have to find it in my project files. Okay. Oh, cool. Some bots. Let's go ahead and hide that user from the channel. Okay. Cool, cool. Radical art. Cool. What kind of project are you working on? Okay. His sandals here. So what I will do. My hierarchy. Okay. Turn that off on everything. Off. Off. Force no motion. Okay, that ensures the best possible performance. Okay, got my shoes here. All right, make sure we turn off our generator bitmaps. We want to make sure we remove the alpha channel with our compression. So if you have a look, it takes up 5 kilobytes, which isn't a lot, but if you have a larger texture, it makes a difference. I'll apply that, and now it only takes up 2 kilobytes of memory. So it is important that you check your import settings. Okay. Let me check the hair. The hair receives shadows. We want to make sure we turn that off. Okay. See how this has alpha information. So again, that takes up memory, which it does not need. So instead of taking up 21 kilobytes, it now only takes up 10.7. Okay, and I think we can probably, I would have to manually change it to 64 by 64, because if I let Unity do that, it'll become very blurry. I'll show you here. See, it loses a fair bit of definition. So what I'll do now is I'll actually do that. I'll do that now. And then as you saw, I can just tile it. And I'm off screen here, image size, 64 by 64 by cubic sharper. I usually put a sharpen filter on that, sharpen, we'll save it. Yep. Okay, now if we go back in here, there we go. Now it's 64 by 64, and we still have retained all of our detail here. So now the camera will get a little bit closer, so what I will do is I'll tile that now. So let's see, 2. Oh right, so you'll have an issue here. You see what's happened there? So I'll have to click on my wrap mode. Will have to be repeat. There we go. 4. So our polygons are jumbled a bit across the UV, but that's not a big deal. Anyway, the beard also is its own mesh. I don't have probes, I don't need to worry about that. Motion vectors we want off. Okay? But I think what's happened is the mustache and beard are different materials, so I'm actually going to change that. From managing it, maintenance. There we go. Actually, I think I did that so I could tile them. I'm going to undo that now. I wanted to tile them separately. Right. So that's the. Bring that back to the beard. Yeah. Because there we go. And then the hair. I'm going to see if I can just use the mustache. Yeah, I'm thinking that's fine. There we go. Okay, we'll check the character. Now in 3 down stars, I use 512 by 512 for the characters. But in Guardians and Metal Exterminators, there's a lot more character switching around. And you're farther away from the characters in this game. So that's why I have 256 by 256 for the characters' bodies. Go ahead and turn off my mapping, and again I'll just double check I've got MIP mapping off on everything. See, that one had MIP mapping on. Oop. I'm not even using the 1024 version, so it's not a big deal. For some reason that came in as a sprite. Let's go ahead and bring that back to default, and we disable generating bitmaps. There we go. And I think that's everything for Karn. And what I will do actually, I'll come back later on, I'll make a few bracelets for him to help complete the hippie look. I might give him some rings, some bracelets. We'll see how we go. So I will go ahead and apply this. Let's find our next guy. Okay, is anyone... No one's looking? It's just between us now, right? It's just between us. Don't tell anyone about this, alright? It's only us here in the chat. Okay, let's see, you got young Bull there. What have we got? No one's looking? It's just us? Okay. Okay. just us here in the chat. No one's seeing. We got Ghoul Busters. So you see what happened with his textures are not quite right. Let's go ahead and fix these now, right? 64 seemed to be where we were at. We want to repeat. There we go. Now we can tile this. 2, 3, 4, 5. How's that look? Now, he's got a real low poly beard, and that's because this game has a lot. This game has a lot on screen, so the character's hair meshes in-game is actually really low. Yeah, what do you think of that, Luna Knights? Yeah, pretty cool 80s look for Bull, right? So you can see it's pretty funny. We've got, I might, yeah. You can see I cut down the resolutions like crazy to try and get it to fit and run properly on old 3DS. We don't need to worry about old 3DS anymore. Oh, whoops, I missed the chat. Let's see. Ah, PlayStation Mobile. Yeah. Yeah, that's a bummer that didn't really work out for Sony. All right. Let's see if I let Unity do this, or if I manually... Okay, no. So let me check the source here. Well, did I keep the 512? No, I kept it at 256. So because he's got 2 different materials, I'm looking at it. I'm thinking I do want the 512 for his shirt. So I think I'll have to go back to my files later, and I'll have to restore the 512 because I would prefer that be higher resolution, the vest, because it is quite jarring, I think. So, Radical R, if you wanted to get games that were on PlayStation Mobile, is there no way that you can get them now? Is that 100% lost to time? Shoot, okay, I also manually reduced the resolution on that. That's a little bit of an annoyance. Okay. See, this is where I was just working out so fast at the end of March. This is again where I was crunching like crazy for 3 days to try to get the game working on old 3DS. And you can see I gutted the game visually to try and get it to work. No matter what I did, I couldn't get it to work. What happened? What happened here? Oh, okay, that was weird. Let me just... I'll have to go through it later. I'll have to go back to it. So, I will make the vest 512, but I have to be careful with my texture memory. I think I'm going to leave this at 256. Right now, the inner shirt is 128. It'll look better once I can get it. I have to go back to my source files, which I have. And then the pants, I think I'll make 256 as well. I think he's supposed to have something hanging there. You know what? Why don't we do that now? Let's do that now. Hold on. What have we got here? What is this? What is that? This is a prefab, is it? Okay. So here's how we do it in the business. Here we go. This is how we do it. Oop. No, I think... Is there supposed to be a hatchet in there? I mean, I couldn't imagine running around with this on your hip. It would just be swinging around all day long. Then again, it is Bull Brandish, isn't it? He can do anything. Alright, and then generally these things are forward heavy. And then we're going to have There we go. Now what we'll do is we'll parent that. We'll make that a child of his right up leg X. Okay, let me just check my textures now. Again, we want to reduce that. You can see this one's not even compressed. Pardon me, I don't even know what happened there. we'll want to compress that. And see, okay, this will be a good example. I'll let Unity reduce the resolution to 64. You can see it's really lost a lot of detail. But again, this is an object that we never really get that close to it. So this is a situation where I'm happy to let Unity do that. It's not an important object, and you never get that close, so you wouldn't even really notice the loss in detail. When it comes to the character's clothes or the hair or other details, it's important that you do that in an external program to preserve details. Okay, that's probably fine like that. There we go. Okay. If I find someone that had bought the game and still has it installed, I can preserve it so it will never be lost. Wow, that's a massive amount of that's a massive undertaking to preserve that. Good on you. Good for you, Radical R. And it's really like that's the work and the dedication that makes these games available for people to play, you know, when they're no longer available. So good on you. You know, that's important work that you're doing. Otherwise, you'll never be able to play those games again. There's a couple games that were, you know, for older versions of iOS that you can't get anymore. It's very annoying. There's a couple that I'm a little bit salty over that I can't get anymore. But that's just how the industry is. You know, corporations don't really care about, you know, preservation. They just want to make money on the day. Okay. Now I just want to make sure. I want to, again, this is for performance reasons. I remove the skinned motion vectors, don't receive the shadows, and then I force no motion. And that ensures that I'll have the best possible performance. And force no motion. There we go. Look, if you went through what old Brandish went through during Solar Falls Undertakers, you'd probably take an axe with you wherever you go. All right. Our work here is done. Let's go ahead and apply that. I actually would like to try to make a tie-dye shirt. I've never done one. I think it would be cool to make one. It just seems like a lot of fun. Game preservation is such an unfortunate issue. You'd think developers and publishers would do whatever they could to preserve that history. It's a bummer because the people that develop the games are often not the people that publish them. And the people that publish them, they want to make money then and there. They don't care about preservation. That's the bummer of it, you know? There's such little care is really what it comes down to. Yeah, exactly. Here, you like this thing? Buy it now and then get the next one. It's a bummer, you know? So it actually really does come down to the people who enjoy the thing, who are passionate about the thing that they're enjoying. Oh, you know what? There's a character I can work on. This is a new character, so I don't have to worry about it spoiling anything. Not a big deal. I'm going to work on this character now. Oh wait, that was just a template. Here we go. Oh, but see, that's okay. There's a good example. Like Holt isn't in this game, obviously. He's not even born yet. But I'll just show you that's what happens if your textures just aren't a high enough resolution. Is all of a sudden, you know, it's just a nightmare. It's nothing. It's visually nothing. Let me see if I let Unity do that. Yeah, so even at 512, it's not very clear. So I think in 3 Down Stars, this is one of the few textures that's actually 1024. Because you can see 512 isn't even enough. For those of you that have played 3 Down Stars, you know that's not what Holt's jacket looks like. Oh wait, that's 256. Okay, yeah. So it is. I think that's actually the highest resolution texture in all of 3 Down Stars. He also has his alternate outfit, which has some other patterns on it, and those also have to be at a high resolution. But again, I was using the character as when I was first building the framework. So this is a character named Shauna. Let's see. Actually, I really like this design. Oh, you know what's missing? I think she's supposed to have a tape cassette player there. And I was so rushed at the end of development, I think I didn't get to include it. I'll have to get it later. I have it in my my source files, but not in the project, so I'll get back to it. Let me see here. 256 by 256 generate bitmaps. But there's an issue with I'll have to fix that somehow. There isn't, like, you can see there's like a filtering issue there. When I sharpened the texture, it added this funny. I'll fix it later. It's boring. I'll get back to it. This is her 80s style shirt. I created this design whole cloth. It's brand new, but I made it based on what I thought would look cool in the 80s. You can see this one, I've reduced it down to 128. Let's see. Luna Knights, take care. Good to see you. Good to hang out and chat. We'll see you next time. Take care. Let's see. Oh, Imora. Hi. Let's see. Does Unity compile the game for you as an RPX with the content? I can't answer that. Anything that's related to the engine that's like specific to the platform is under NDA, so I can't discuss those things. And also, I don't know. So there's the two things. Two reasons why I can't answer that. So you can see the difference between 128 and 256 that's a huge difference. So again, there's 128 and there's 256. And I know for a fact that if I made that 512, it wouldn't make a difference. This is already detailed, dense enough. Let's see here. Again, I just want to go through all of her textures and make sure that MIP maps are disabled. Oh, that's all right. That's all right, Imora. It's good to ask anyway, you know. Let's see, hide that bot as well. Yeah, it does look detachable. It's kind of creepy. I'll fix it later. It's no big deal. That's gross. Edge, take care. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out and chatting. See ya. Let's see here. Oh, you know what and speaking of these annoying bots, you know what I saw recently? There's a few people that I watch that do a lot of reviews on these sort of retro consoles, and there's one brand, I'm not going to say the name of the brand, but they've been loading firmware that has an app, and the logo for the app is an adult website, and it doesn't have content from the adult website, it just has more ROMs in there. But why? And on their website and all of the product descriptions, they say this is a game console for kids. What happens if you hand that console to a kid, and then one of the app logos is the name and the icon for an adult website? It's, oh, they really messed up. That's a massive, you can't do that. That's one thing you really shouldn't be allowed to do that. These bots are very annoying, aren't they? Yeah, if you have any other questions related to Unity that's not specific to these like Nintendo hardware, yeah, we can talk about that. It's no big deal. Let's see if no, bummer. I'll have to find my source images so I can get the texture resolution back. See, that's one where I had manually externally reduced the resolution, but I would like that to be a higher resolution. We'll get to it, don't worry. Let's see, the sandals again are not a big deal. Personally, I would keep those lower resolution. 64 is fine, you know. Not a big deal. So what I will do, I'll just show you, I'm saving myself some time here. What I'm doing is I am selecting all of the skinned mesh renderers, and I'm disabling all of that together so I don't have to do that multiple times. And of course, force motion. You only need those if you're using like blurring effects for your camera. In general, there is a performance overhead if you have that enabled. If you disable that, you get better performance. then everything's fine. See, her hair, I am unable to tile Shauna's hair, so that's 128. You know, I could do 256 resolution for the hair, but again, it's not that important. You get the idea of her hair, and it's not like a huge mesh like a shirt where it's jarring if it's low resolution. So that's fine. Man, I really like this pattern, this 80s thing. So what I'll have to do later, I'll have to put a tape cassette player on her hip. As you can see, I shaped her shirt, so there's supposed to be a tape cassette clipped to her pants. So I'll add that later. I don't have it in the project. I'll get to it. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's go ahead and apply that. Let's see, who else do we need to work on? Yeah, why are the bots coming here? I'm never lonely. I've got 2 good dogs. I've got 2 good happy dogs to hang out with. Let's see, who can I work with? Oh yeah, this isn't a big deal. This is fine. No one will recognize this character, so I can work on him. That's fine. I'm trying to avoid putting spoilers in. You know, I don't want to ruin anything for anyone. But this is a cool bonus showing you guys Karn and Bull Brandish. You'll recognize him from the other games, but it's just a fun sneak peek, an early look. So again, there's something like, it's a little bit like visual ASMR when you see a low resolution texture like that, and then you see it become higher resolution. It's a little bit like ASMR for me personally. Oh man, I have to get the source. I gotta get the source image. Let me see if I can just track it down real quick, because it's starting to become more and more of an issue with more of this. Okay, let me see here. See ya, Rodolfo. Take care. Thanks for joining the stream. Let's see, but let's have a look at the hair here. What have we got on the hair? 64 by 64, but I think we should be tiling it more. What do you guys think? Number 2 or number 3? What do you think? Number 2? Number 3? Actually, this is a situation where I would like the hair and the mustache to be tiled separately. Mustache. I think they do need to be tiled separately. 2. I think the mustache looks best with 2. I think the hair looks best with 3. What do you guys think? We'll turn off the lighting. Okay, this is a situation where I'll have to go into the modeling program. You can see part of the his shirt underneath is coming through the vest. I'll have to open my modeling program and then just adjust that. So that's not a big deal, but it's time consuming and boring. What? My voice is good practice for you. How so? Are you gonna do an impersonation? Let's see here. Yeah, I'm just looking through my files really quick. I just want. Oh God, I hope nobody saw that. That had a whole showed all the projects that were just in that folder there. Please don't pause that later on. Okay. Barbra Streisand effect. Let's see here. So I got Whitty, I got Shauna. Oh, let's see. I think Honord's in a different folder. Dang, he's in a different folder. The difficulty is I've got like 120 characters probably that I have modeled. I have all of their resources totally finished. And some of those I move into specific folders for management. Some of them I have on an external hard drive because they take up so much space. I think he's on the external hard drive, so I'll have to fix that later. So yeah, the source files for all the high resolution stuff are stored externally. I'll have to fix that later. We can just do the basic stuff for now. Oh, you recently became deaf, so now you have a cochlear implant. Oh, I hope that's really working out for you. So now I'm learning to hear again. All right. All right. So you have to actively listen? Is that how you sort of have to um, put in an active effort? Oh, huh. Thanks. uh, I I uh, I'm glad the transcriber app likes me. Sorry, is the music too loud? Just let me know if the music is up too loud. Okay. Ah, bummer. So all of his materials I did manually edit externally again. I was over optimizing to get it to run on the original hardware, and it's not even going to be on the original anymore. So we'll just do what we can, and I'll fix the other stuff later. Skinned motion vectors, cast shadows off. Okay, so I'll move on to other stuff now. I think we've seen enough of this kind of thing. So I'll actually show you here. So in Unity, when you have a skinned motion vector, or a skinned mesh renderer, when you have a skinned mesh renderer, that means that you're able to deform. You're able to deform the mesh. Pardon me. So you can deform that mesh because it is a skinned mesh renderer. If it's not a skinned mesh renderer, you can't deform the mesh. But those are more expensive to draw and process. So there's a rendering overhead. So if you have too many skinned mesh renderers, that causes your game to slow down. Now your hair and your mustaches and your beards are quite expensive. They're really high poly count. So if they were skinned mesh renderers, by default they are, that would make them very expensive. So I actually separate them. I separate the meshes manually. Excuse me, and I process the meshes so that they are not skinned mesh renders. They're just normal mesh renderers. So they have less impact on the performance of the game. And that's something that you have to put in a bit of extra work to do manually. So there we go. Okay, get the hierarchy out of there. So I'll have to come back and fix more of that later. Okay, what else can we work on here? You guys want to see some monsters? Let me see here. Correct, Radical R. Yeah, it was earlier in development. It was working on original models, and again, at some point in development, it stopped going past the title screen, and I couldn't get it to work on original hardware anymore. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, I really was bummed that I couldn't get it working on original hardware anymore. Like I said, it was the end of March. I spent 3 days, and I had to make a call. Okay, yeah, I'll do some gameplay footage soon. But what I will do is let me see if I can run the game. I'll just the problem is uh, I don't know what the controller mapping is on the keyboard, so the buttons are mapped like all over the place, so I wouldn't be able to play it properly. Um, yeah, I don't have a controller set up. Uh, I'll I'll try and stream next time. We'll play some Guardians and Metal Exterminators, and I'll share some gameplay. It's it's very uh, it's the most action-oriented Silver Falls uh, in the whole lineup so far, in that you equip multiple weapons, and then the game is very combo-based. So after you perform a hit with a weapon, there's like a combo uh, time frame where like there's certain frames where you can cancel your end lag and you can go into a different weapon. And so the game is meant to have this really just satisfying flow where you figure out that sweet spot in your attacks, and then you can just switch through a bunch of different weapons and you have like a massive combo going. And then at that point you can just mow down enemies. So yeah, I'll do some gameplay for you next time. Hi, Dry Oh yeah, you're thinking of actually I'll show you. So you may be thinking of Ghoul Busters. So Ghoul Busters is one of our upcoming 3DS games. This is takes place in the 90s, so that's why it looks pixelated, and I used a Game Boy type color scheme. And this game takes place in the 80s, and it has a more realistic art style that's more detailed, but all the characters and whatnot, they're styled like 80s characters. I'd like to see that running really quickly here. I'll just let's see what I will do. Let's see here. Just for you, Dry Towel. Let me just run this real quick. I got to put some objects in here so I can get the game logic working. Okay, let me disable the music because the music's going to be quite loud. I'm going to run it. Okay, Dry Towel, and then let me switch over to the control with the keyboard logic. Here we go, Dry Towel, just for you. So it's jumpy because it's running in the editor. My computer's doing like 1,000 things right now. Whoop. But it runs 60 frames a second on new hardware. It's not 60 frames a second on original 3DS hardware, but it's still very smooth. Okay. It's again, it's only jumpy because it's in the Unity editor. I fell off. Woo! Here, you know what? I'll show you some of the items here. Let me edit my save data very quickly. Let me see here. I'm just going to manually edit. I'm going to give myself 5 of everything. I'm going to game shark it, as they say in the business. Okay, so if you have a look at the bottom screen here, actually, yeah, this is a good chance to share. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm a big fan of 2.5D. I really like when the Crash Bandicoot games go sideways. I always thought that looked really cool. I'll show you what the items do here. Hold on, let me edit my character control system for the computer. Okay. All right, can I jump? Okay, so what I'll do, oh look, I'll show beating up this enemy with ninja stars here. So click that. So you can see 1 ninja stars didn't do it. Let's throw another set. Okay, there we go. So the second set of ninja stars did enough damage. If I had used these firecrackers, it would have stunned him. It would have held him in place. Let's see. This is quite a fun mechanic as well. It's extremely useful. So if you're having a difficult time with platforming sections, you can use the balloon here. Is that going to give me enough height? Ah, it's not enough height. Here's what I'll do. I'll try and get another balloon out there. Okay, I've got 2 balloons. Ah, skip that section. So you can see if the game has certain sections where it's a bit tough for you, you can create your own solutions to get through levels. There's pretty creative ways. Now I'm going to equip myself with the umbrella, and I'm going to put on my helicopter just in case there's any enemies that try to ambush me. And then I'm going to just jump over this guy, and then the umbrella... No! Oh. I could have stayed on the platform. Yeah. Let's see. You got your health item. If you use the shoes, you'll take less knockback from attacks, so you can brute force your way through difficult sections. The helicopter broke my balloon. You can see the helicopter will break your balloon. That guillotine's insta-kill, so I can't really show you how well the shoes work. And the firecrackers, that'll stun enemies. It'll make it a lot easier to get through certain sections, or if you want to beat the enemy yourself, that's what the firecracker is good for. This is hyper candy. If you eat that candy, you can see now the game is moving in slow motion. The music kind of fits well here, doesn't it? So if you find that, oh, I should have put on my shoes. I'll put on my shoes now. Okay, so I'll take less knockback. I'll put on my umbrella and I'll eat some more hyper candy. Did I click that? Hold on. Eat some candy. There we go. So it's moving slower. I'm wearing my shoes, so I should take less knockback if I get hit by this guy. Ah, see, I did take less knockback, but I was still too close to the edge. So there's a lot of different items you can use to create your own way to get through difficult levels. Yep. There's a little look at Ghoul Busters. So all the games are in a different style visually and also gameplay-wise, so that every game in the Silver Falls series can stand on its own and there'll be a reason to play it. And that gives me a chance to be creative and to push myself as a developer. But also, I don't want to burn people out by saying, here's a bunch of games, they're all pretty much the same, don't worry about it. That's the last thing I want to do. I want every game to be different so that people look forward to Silver Falls games and say, oh, I wonder what different thing is going to be in the game this time, as opposed to having a bunch of the same game again and again. All right, let me see. You guys want to look at some monsters, right? Yeah, the game looks. Ghoul Busters has a lot of 3D depth. I'm a massive fan of 3D stereoscopic, so I won't. There's a lot. Yeah, Radical R, you're right. I'll probably finally catch up on some of my games in my backlog. There's a lot of games that I haven't got to play yet, so I'll get to it eventually. Let's have a look at my monsters here. What have we got? Okay, let me hide the inspector here. Let's see. Oh, here. You don't really ever get that close to these enemies, but I'll show you. In order to get this enemy working properly. Birdman Senpai, how's it going? Thanks for joining the stream. I'll show you. I massively had to cut down the poly count on this guy. Like it was insane. There's because a lot of these enemies can appear on screen. The human characters are actually, you can see they're quite high poly count as well. And so this guy, he's seen better days. He's really. Let me check here. We'll check what his poly count is. So he's got 4,000 verts, 1,676 triangles, which is fair. That's a fair amount. That's acceptable on the 3DS. But once you get like 2 or 3 bad boys on screen, it's still okay. But I think once you got 5 or 6, then you're gonna notice some frame dropping. I really wanted to use physics animations on the tentacles, but the 3DS it doesn't really do physics that well. It's going to cause massive slowdown, so I had to hand animate all the tentacles. Let me run some of his animations here. Oh, so you know how the game is called Guardians and Metal Exterminators, so this enemy is the Metal Exterminator here. Let's run some animation. He's got his idle. What we got? We got walk. We got our walking. We get hurt. Ow! Ouchie! I've been hurt. Attack. So that's just the animation. But when he does his attack, he moves forward a fair bit, because he's jumping forward. I really enjoy doing animations, but it's one of the things that it's more time consuming than I would like it to be. So you can see he takes a step back. He sort of, and there is a reduction in the animation quality in order to compress it and to save space, reduce the amount of memory that the animation uses. So it's a little bit watered down from the source material. So he leans back a little bit, and then he jumps forward, and he sticks his tentacles out, and he tries to do a big hit. And you can see he jumps forward, he drags his legs with him, and then he comes to a landing there, and you can see he has an effect of his weight, sort of, you can feel the weight of his body sort of compressing his legs as he lands. So I do enjoy animating, but it's one of the tougher things, especially when you have animals with a lot of tentacles or legs. It gets tough. Let's see. Man, hide that. Okay. So I assume you're going to be limited to how many enemies will be on screen at once. I think it's around 8 or 9, probably around there. So the thing is, there's certain enemies that are lower poly count, and I can afford to have heaps of them on screen. The problem is you can have guys like this, where if you have 5 or 6, that becomes problematic. Bots? What do you mean bots? You want like robotic? Oh, bots. Yeah, the annoying. Oof. How come YouTube isn't fixing that? You know, what's weird is, yeah, if you see the bigger YouTube channels and then they have scam accounts that are messaging, uh, you know, their followers and saying, "Oh, you want a PlayStation 5? You know, click on this link." How come YouTube isn't doing anything to fix that? And now we have these bots that have been around for months. YouTube's not going to fix that either. It's not very fair to the users, is it? Here's his roar animation. One fun little detail. I like looking at this. You can see his front dongle. It's a tentacle. I'll just call it a dongle. You can see the way it flops out and then hits the ground and then bounces up a little bit. And that's the last tentacle. You can see it just sort of like whips out. I just thought it'd be a funny detail as part of the animation. And it's such a small thing, you wouldn't really notice it, you know, but I think it's just fun little details like that. It just flops and the tip hits the ground. Yeah, exactly. I thought just a fun, because the camera is so far away, you don't really ever get to notice it. But yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, you could notice it a bit. It's just a funny visual detail. Yeah. You're a mod on other channels and the bots are annoying. It's weird how frequently they pop up. It's a bummer. Yeah, you would think that YouTube would start banning them, but they don't. I wonder what it would take for YouTube to actually do something about it. Maybe if we can get Kathleen Kennedy to cry and complain about it, maybe then YouTube will make some massive changes to their platform, because someone who has a massive amount of money and impact on the industry can influence their behavior. Okay. Let's see. All right, let's have a look at another enemy. Well, I'd have to use my personal account to Twitter shame them, but I've got like two followers on my personal account. Okay. Now then, um, let's see here. Oh, I've got enemies here that I don't want to spoil. Uh, oh yeah, okay, that's a cool feature for White Inside Its Umbra, our upcoming Wii U game, because I don't want to spoil enemies. For every Silver Falls games has its own specific enemies that it introduces, and I don't want to spoil that by including them in other games. So the way White Inside Its Umbra works, it has a light gun shooter mode that in which you can encounter a bunch of different enemies. But actually, when you code link other games into White Inside Its Umbra, that actually makes monsters from the other game show up in White Inside Its Umbra. So that's how I get around spoiling the content. I don't want to spoil anything, so that at least ensures, well, and so's probably played the game, so they've seen the monsters, so it probably won't spoil it for them. And that allows me to use monsters in other games and have more variety when it comes to the battle modes. Let's see what other. Oh, you know what? This isn't a spoiler. Here, this is from White Inside Its Umbra. So I think you have, yeah, I think you code link White Inside Its Umbra. Thanks, Amora. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm doing my best. I'm trying really hard to get these out on time. Thank you for that. So again, in Guardians and Metal Exterminators, you can play as the humans or you can play as the monsters. And I think you unlock this guy by connecting it to the Wii U game. So that adds him to the game. He's from the Wii U game. And I've shown him in marketing before. I normally don't include these guys in the marketing, but I thought he was such a fun design that it'd be a shame not to. I think I made him on stream as well. I think we did that. So he's a fun little guy. Let's. Oh, he's up there. You're up there now, huh? Maybe I should fix that. Let's walking. There we go. What a fun little. Look, he wants a hug. Little guy wants a hug. You've only seen Smash 4 using 3DS connectivity with the console. Yeah, I loved that feature. I thought it was so great. You know how you had your, you could make your custom character builds in 3DS and put them on Wii U? I thought that was really cool. You can use the 3DS as a controller. I absolutely had that. That's probably why the circle pad on my 3DS broke, is because I also used it as a controller for the Wii U. That was a great feature. Yeah, if you're still new to the Silver Falls games, in general they'll all connect to each other, and then they'll add content from one game to another. So if you have a favorite character, you know, from one game, you can still play as them in another game, even though that character has nothing to do with the story in this other game. If you connect them, you can still play, you know, I generally do 2 modes in the game. I do a story mode, and then I do quite a deep battle mode that has a lot of RPG elements that's just focused on battling and collecting skills and equipment, and that's where I can afford to bring in characters from other games, and it doesn't necessarily have to be story related. It's just a way to keep enjoying your characters that you really like in other games with different styles. Just need to check this guy here. Right, I'm going to check his textures. I'll bring this on stage on screen so you can at least see what I'm working on here. So you can see this guy has 128. Do I have the source texture for this guy? Dang, I would like this to be 256 now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, cool. Oh, I have a 512 here. I actually... Actually, look, let's just see what the 512 looks like first. Okay. I'm actually thinking, yeah, I think this should be 512 by 512. Because I can tell if I reduce that, it's just going to look muddy again. And this is, you know, you've got to be able to see detail on your character here. So let's go ahead, and you can see I've removed bitmaps. Now it takes up 128 instead of 170. Actually, I'm sorry. I think I've got my logo blocking that. So I might be pointing to something you can't even see. I'm sorry about that. Alright, and then we want to disable skid motion vectors. This is for performance reasons. For snow motion. There we go. Okay, we've got our happy boy. He's got his nice high resolution textures back. Let's see, I gotta be careful on what I click on here. Oh, you know what? Wolves are... This isn't a spoiler. Ooh, look at those chunky textures. Boy, that's chunky, isn't it? Okay. Let's go ahead and let's see. I've got 256 here. So you can see it's also got alpha information on there, and we want to compress that. I think 256 on this guy should be okay. Oh, we'll disable the emit maps, and you can see now we're using way less memory than we were before. Yeah, Imora, actually, our Game Boy games, they also can connect to the 3DS and the Wii U games, and let's see, yeah, I have a novel. You can read it for free on the website. There's 3 more chapters left that haven't come out. After all, the chapters launch online, I'll start selling paperbacks that you can purchase for the novel, and it'll include a code system so you can actually connect the novel with the games, and you can add characters from the novel into the games themselves. And that'll be for the games that are coming up now and all the future planned games as well. So I'm thinking 256 is probably okay for this fella. Okay, he seems pretty happy. Let's go ahead and find a big wolf. A wolf. Big wolf. Birdman Senpai, absolutely yes, 100%. Unfortunately, I don't have, at the moment, I don't have a way to develop a Wii game. If I did, it would be on. Absolutely, it would be on. I do have a Game Boy Color game that's out, and that's called Galaxy Bound Curse. If you'd like to play that, you can grab the ROM for free from our website, silverfallsgame.com. You can play that any way you like. It's got, that game is fully canon, even though it's free and you can just play it any way you like. It hasn't been released commercially. It's still very important to the lore of Silver Falls. And if you connect it to 3 Down Stars or Undertakers, which are our two 3DS games, you can get a duck that helps you in the battle modes. So again, you connect the Game Boy game to the 3DS game, you get a pet duck, and if enemies try to flank you from the rear, the duck will actually attack the enemies, and then it'll protect you. So I enjoy hearing from people who, connect the games, and they'll just DM and say, dude, the duck, I just got the duck, it's so good. Yeah, ducks are good, How about the Vita? Yeah, I would love to I am working on homebrew for the Vita. I don't want to, overshadow the games that I'm working on for the 3DS and Wii U right now. So, yeah, I do have homebrew in development for the Vita. I like the Vita very much. Techno Jade. Yeah, because I'm not owned, by a big studio or a publisher, I can afford to just do what I want. So if I can come up with a weird, something that I think is interesting and creative, that I think people will find worthwhile, I can afford to do that. And that's the benefit of being a small independent developer, is you can afford to do things like that. Radical R. Nice. Yeah, well, I am working on um, just trying to find cool ways. Like, I've set up libraries and workstations to be able to make games on older systems as well. So we'll see how we go. But again, what I think it will be most fun, and I don't just do it as a gimmick. Like, as you guys see, I'll pick a game style, and I'll set the story in the era in which that hardware was prevalent. So, our Ghoul Busters game, the story is set in the 90s, the early 90s. Vicarious Brothers looks like a Visual Boy game, and that game is set in the mid 90s. And then Galaxy Bound Curse, which is our Game Boy Color game, it actually runs on the Game Boy, that's set in the late 90s, the story. So it's a way to connect with the person who's playing the game. It's a way for them to connect to the story in a way that is meaningful, because probably a lot of us have memories of, the 90s or the early 2000s or the mid 2000s. If you set a story in that era and you leverage the hardware, you can really build a strong connection from a storytelling standpoint. Yeah, the people who are passionate about the Vita will keep it alive for a very long time. It's just a shame that, manufacturing has ended, so we're not getting new hardware. In terms of, hardware goes faulty over time. We're not going to be getting any more new Vitas. But in terms of software, people being passionate about it, that's just so fantastic. This is a fun enemy. I actually really like this guy. And he just does a little roly roll. Roly roll. You don't want to get poked by that guy. a PlayStation X-like game on PlayStation X, PSX, yeah. I got a point. PSX game. Well, see, here's the thing. If I made a Vita-style game, I would want to push the graphics as far as I could go with the Vita. I would want the presentation to be as good as possible. If I did a PlayStation style game, it would be on modern hardware. Because doing that requires special shaders that can be difficult for older hardware to render. If you're using a modern platform, you can use shaders that actually make your game have the mathematical inconsistency, or inaccuracy, I should say, of the original PlayStation, which gives your polygons that jaggy look. And that's something that we, in retrospect, we quite enjoy that look now because that's how the PlayStation looked. So you can obtain that, but in general, you'd want to do that on newer platforms. Yeah, absolutely. And it's because those shaders are widely available now, and they're easy to implement into your projects. But again, it's something you want to do on newer hardware. Rowan Maxwell, hey, thank you for that. Thanks for stopping by the stream. Let's see, who else can I work on without spoiling anything? Oh no, this isn't spoiling anything. And I do need to fix the textures on this guy. Okay, everyone, it's everyone's favorite big boy moose, Maverick D. Moose. So you can see I had to cut back his texture resolution a massive amount. Right now he's just a big blurry moose. Let's go ahead and fix that together, shall we? Hopefully I kept the source images in the project. Again, I went on an optimizing rampage at the end of March, and I just cut back a ton of these textures. So I'll bring the window in. We can have a look at what I'm working on. So right now, this guy is 128. I have the 256 version, and I have a 512 for just the head piece itself, just the helmet. So I think a 256 will probably, I think that's probably fine. I think that'll be fine. Okay, we'll remove the MIT maps. We'll make sure there's no alpha information. So let's see. This is like 42 kilobytes of memory. Now it only takes up 32 because we've disabled the MIT maps. Okay. Actually, I think I might just go make myself a coffee very quickly. I'll be right back. I'm just going to make a coffee, and I only have instant coffee. I'll be back in a minute or so. You're back. Hey, I hope you guys weren't saying anything mean about my character models while I was gone. Alright. Just disable the lighting real quick so you can see it's actually quite flat, that vest. Let's check the resolution on this guy. Oof, 128. I'm gonna hope that I let Unity do that for me. Yeah, nice. Okay. Yeah, that's good. 256 is good for that. Oopsies. Actually, I'm looking at it in the lighting. In the lighting, you might not notice. You might not even notice. I think I'm. See, here's where I'll make a trade-off. I'm looking at the lighting that the character will appear in, and I'm quite certain you won't see the difference between 128 and 256 with his vest, but what you will notice is his body. So you can see the body is currently 256. I think I've got a 512 here. This one's supposed to be 512. Okay. So right now, again, this is like ASMR for the eyeballs. So this is 256 right now. Let's go ahead and turn this into 512 and see how it looks. Ow, my eyeballs. Ow. Why does it look like that? Huh. Let's figure out how to make it better. Let's see, why is that 2... Okay, is this supposed to be 1024? I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at it. That's alright. Okay, this may be a situation... This may be the only 1024 texture in the game. Yeah. Okay, so I have two options. I have two options here. I can either rely on this 1024, which is that's a lot of memory. You can see it takes up 700 kilobytes, 0.7 megs. If I take out the MIP mapping, let's see how much it takes. Okay, so that saves me 200 kilobytes if I remove generate MIP mapping. So my two options are either rely on this or use a lower resolution texture and tile it. I'm going to try that. Let's do that and see what it looks like. And if it looks any better, we'll use a lower resolution, a fur texture, and we'll tile it. So let me see. Seamless. No, I've got a seamless texture. I'm going to have to open up. Yeah, Birdman Senpai. So what happens is, let me see here if I can explain it properly. Okay. So let's say there's only 240 pixels up and down, and there's only 400 pixels left and right. But the thing is, your character can be closer to the camera, so they can actually occupy more space, or they can be far away. So your camera could be only looking at your camera could be so close to the character that part of the texture is filling up the whole screen, and that's when it becomes pixely and not quite pleasant. So that's why it's important. You have to keep in mind how close your character is going to be to the camera, because if they're too close, that's when you'll notice that they don't look very good. That's why certain characters need higher resolution textures, is it really depends on how close they are to the camera. And I know there are certain scenes where you can get pretty close. So right now I'm just going to check my project files, and I'm going to grab a seamless texture that I've set aside. The latest project that I used it in should be here. Unity projects. Yeah. Pardon me while I'm looking off screen. I just need to grab some texture files. Radical R. Yeah, correct. So, yeah, I know that the camera will get in close sometimes, and that's why certain resolutions are higher. if the camera stayed up here, you could make all of those texture resolutions low, and that would be a better decision to make because the camera's never close. No, yeah, I think we probably have a similar sense of humor, Radical R. Let's see here. Where might I have? I should have grabbed. I have a couple different external hard drives that have different resource files. I'm just kind of thinking which one's the fastest one to look through. Let's see here. Anyway, all right. I'm just going to. I'm going to search for that, and then we'll see if Windows will find that for me. Let's go ahead and just check out his gloves. See, I know that his gloves, you're never going to be this close to the gloves, right? In terms of the camera. So that's where it's okay to have a lower resolution. Let's 64 by 64, totally fine. I want to just turn off MIT mapping. And again, that helps prevent memory fragmentation on the 3DS, and that alleviates issues where the game can crash due to a memory fragmentation. I'm looking at his shoes. I'm thinking maybe, let's see if I let Unity do that for me, if I reduced it. See, that's a situation where you will notice some detail in the shoes differently between 128. So I'll just do that again. And I know that it will be close enough to the camera in some situations to where you'll notice it. I think it's better to have the 128. Okay, check my eyeball. I can see it's pretty high resolution eyeball. Oh wait, it's the same texture as the yeah, that's fine. And let me check. Just make sure these all have their bitmaps disabled. Yep. Birdman, do you think your Game Boy Color will run on my 2008 MacBook Air? Yeah, absolutely. You can get a Game Boy emulator on your MacBook Air. Yeah, if you just go to Google, type in OS X Game Boy emulator. Let's see. Yeah, I typed in Game Boy OS X best Game Boy emulator, and you can see there's Visual Boy Advanced. I personally use Visual Boy Advanced when I want to emulate Game Boy games, and that's pretty easy to set up. Depending on your phone, you can get Game Boy emulators for your phone as well. And personally, that's how I like to play Game Boy games, because I mean, you're kind of meant to hold them in your hand, and there's a special connection you have to Game Boy games because they're so close to you, and it's kind of like you're sitting there with your Fruit Loops and your Capri Sun and your Cheetos, and you're playing Zelda. Yeah, it's just nice to have buttons on the handheld. I have a problem with touchscreen buttons. They just don't have that. You can sort of roll your thumb onto a button, right? But you can't really roll your thumb onto a touchscreen button. You have to approach it from directly above. It's not as intuitive, the touchscreen controls. Well, I was listing things I would have eaten as a kid, sitting and playing Link's Awakening. Okay, just want to make sure I turn these off. And then we want to make sure that we optimize these. Okay, let's see. Was Windows able to find, let's see, seamless by seamless clouds, seamless chain link. Didn't find it. Didn't find my seamless fur. It's a little bit annoying. Well, we'll leave it for now. It's the new hardware, and I do know that the new hardware actually can have a few large resolution textures like that. The 1024, from the work that I've done, I know that it can handle actually a couple of those and not be a big problem. So it'll be fine. Let's go ahead and leave that for now. We don't want to spend, too much time on it. This is everyone's favorite moose, everyone's friend. Let's see what else I can work on. Yeah, it's when you're a kid, you could really eat. You can eat a lot. You can eat whatever you want, and it's a lot easier to not have health problems. Oh, if there's any Galaxy-bound Curse fans out there, our Game Boy game. One of the lead characters from that is Sheriff Fred. So if you connect the Game Boy game to this game, so this is Guardians and Metal Exterminators, you can connect it to the Game Boy game, and then if you connect to the Game Boy game, it'll add Fred from the Game Boy Color game into this, so you can play as Fred. Let's go ahead and check our textures. Actually, that looks pretty good. I might leave the shirt where it is, I think. Pretty good resolution. 256. That's pretty good, isn't it? Just disable them. Absolutely. What happened here? Yeah, I try to. Well, I mean, you should make an effort to have a healthy diet. So I often have apples and bananas. I try to have those quite often. I do enjoy a good plum. Those are quite nice. I had a nice fresh batch of grapes the other day. Those were lovely as well. And it's unfortunate that foods that you have from when you're younger, I mean, anything that comes from your youth is just going to resonate with you. Your brain's just going to react positively. So if I eat something that I enjoyed when I was a kid, it's sort of just obviously it's a dopamine hit. Everything's filled with sugar, but also it's for me it's sort of like an emergency morale boost. If I'm working a very long work week, I'm feeling quite low energy by the end of the week. Yeah, I'll have a snack that I used to enjoy when I was younger, and then usually that helps me carry through to the end of the work week. And again, I generally don't do that, but lately, it's just this year, in order to keep going with my projects. Okay, so what we're going to do is we want the badge to be shiny. We're just going to use a shader here. We're going to flip that around. Okay, there we go. And in general, these settings like this generally work. Well, I think something like that will look good. There we go. Nice. Good shiny badge. There we go. And look, everything is all right in moderation. It's when you have 3 bags of Cheetos every day. That's when it can impact your health. I'm just going to check the poly count on this badge. I'm a little worried about the poly count. Well, it's an old-fashioned star because we got an old-fashioned sheriff who believes in old-fashioned justice. That is a massive poly count. What I need to do is, I thought I already made a reduced version of this. Let me check here. Yeah. So I have a reduced poly count version, so you can see I reduced one to 360, whereas this high poly count version has 6,872 triangles. And I'd rather have 360 triangles. What I'll do now That's why it's important to check these things. And there you go. You wouldn't even notice the difference, really? Okay, so it might be a little too shiny head on. Let me see here. I might just dial this back a little bit. Okay, I think that looks fair. Yeah, Wild West Sheriff. Maybe this badge is from the Wild West. Maybe it's been around for a while. You'd need to boundary break the game and then hack the camera to get that close. I'm kind of looking at the shirt. I'm looking at the badge. You know, I'm not real happy about how blurry the badge is just there. The Silver Falls badge. You know what I would like to do is I'd actually like to get patches of the sheriff, or the sheriff patch. I'd actually like to get that made so I can you know, sell them through the site and people can have a Silver Falls badge. Let's see here. Where is this guy? Do I have the 512? Yeah, cool. So I actually saved the 512 version in case I wanted to go back to it. And you know, I know the camera can get about there. I'm gonna go with that one. I think this is a situation where I really prefer the 512. Okay, the pants look like 128 to me, if even. Oh no, I manually reduced it. Ah, I'll have to find the source files later. That's how it is. That means that that's probably going to be as well. Okay, well, let's live with it. Let's go ahead and adjust our mesh renderers. Cast shadows. Off. Edge. Off. I have to do all this stuff again to maximize the performance on the 3DS. If this was on a more modern platform, it wouldn't matter. Leaving all that stuff on, you know, it's not a big deal. But for 3DS, every little bit counts. That's how you get decent performance. But again, that's just a, you know. Let me see if I can bring up a screenshot of the Galaxy Bound Curse. Just a second here. Objects. Galaxy Bound Curse. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, there's a modern screenshot. Yeah, so I'll bring this up. And you can see, so for people that have played Galaxy Bound Curse, again, this is our Game Boy Color game. You can play it for free, grab it from our website. There's the Sheriff. That's how people know Sheriff Fred. That's just how he looks. But you will be able to connect Galaxy Bound Curse, our Game Boy Color game. You can connect that to our upcoming 3DS game, and then Fred will be playable. And you can see this is how he looked in the late 90s. He was quite pixely in the late 90s. But in the 80s, this is what he looked like. So there you go. Yeah, I also, I haven't gotten around to it, but I've been so busy working, but I need to load a bunch of money into the eShop as well so I can pick up some last minute games before, again, August is when we're no longer able to add funds anymore. I'm gonna blend in with my people here. Ah, my arms. The camera didn't reach that far. So yeah, Galaxy Bound Curse, you can't buy it anywhere. It's just one of our free games. Again, I try to do one free game a year. So you can't buy it, but you can play it anywhere you want. No, Birdman Senpai. No. I haven't modeled myself. I mean, in the lore of Silver Falls, one thing I pay very special attention to when crafting the environment is there's no social media. There's no social media in Silver Falls, and I just keep thinking, wow, what a lovely fantasy world that would be to live in. Our world without social media, I think. You know, it'd be so nice. Says I, as I'm using a form of digital communication, which is social media, you know. Excellent, good. Thanks for clarifying that, Radical R. Yeah, I thought it was the 23rd, but 29, that's excellent. Okay. Cool. So as long as we all add funds before August 29, we'll have funds in our accounts, okay? I have to get on that as well. Yeah. So that's one thing that I'm very careful with Silver Falls is no social media. There's none. The world just didn't develop it. They didn't want it. They didn't like it. Cool. I'm not sure if I showed much of the UI. It's a bit messy until I run it. But you know how watches looked in the 80s where you push the glow button on your calculator watch and it glowed this cool, you know, neon green. So that's why I modeled this to sort of look like those watches that light up. And that's all the game logic visible. When you run the game, obviously, it's going to hide the stuff you don't need and then, you know, show the stuff you do. Cool, thanks for checking on that, Radical R. Now let's see what else can I work on here. I'll show you a little bit how the... Oh, thanks for that. You picked up Undertakers. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I really hope you have fun with that. Do check out the website. Silver Falls game has the map. And then that can help you track down. I really wanted to have a map in the game, but because it has to run on old 3DS hardware, there's very limited memory, and I wasn't able to implement a map. So the map on the website will help you out. What I would love to have done if I could package the game and sell it physically, I would have loved to include a map. And then maybe some crayons or something so you could write some details in on the map. Yeah, Radical R, I'll do more sales as these games start launching. I will put those on a significant sale so they're easier for people to pick up. Let's see. After these 7 games and the phone game, what system will you focus on next? Switch. So it'll be focus on the Switch for now. But I do want to keep improving and adding content to the Wii U and 3DS games. If we're selling enough units and people are really enjoying the games, and if the games are positively received, then I will have at least one wave of updates for all the 7 games for later in the year. And if people are, you know, again, we have to sell all the units pretty much in the first 2 or 3 months after each game's launch because people won't be able to add money anymore. So we really need to, if we can sell enough, I'll have wave 1 of updates this year, and then early next year I'll have wave 2 of updates that'll bring in any people find any glitches. I can fix them. If there's any requests for features, I can try to implement those as well. Oh, that being said, in some of our previous videos that I've done over the past week, I did drop some visual Easter eggs. I think one person caught a visual Easter egg, so I'm not gonna say anything more than that. Just going back to your question of what systems will I work on next. All right. Oh, I'll show you how the weapon system works here. So this is my audition-y system, right? He's got a reference to weapon holders left and right. If I bring in the hierarchy here, If I click that, it'll help me identify my weapon holder left and my weapon holder right. Yep. Okay, so let's we just collapse. Oh, we can't collapse all, can we? Okay. So let me just grab a weapon. I'm just going to randomly, I don't know, I'll type in knife. Let's see what I've got here. Camp knife? Okay, we got weapon camp knife, right? So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to bring in my camp knife. Yep, this is him. Okay. Is it? No, no, that's not a setup. That's not set up correctly. It's weapon rig, camp knife. Is that what? Oh, the rig and the graphics are different. So you have the graphics. So the game handles these in two different ways. It has the graphic, and then it has a weapon rig. So the weapon rig contains the hitbox data. So this references a scriptable object. I'll go ahead and click on that. That's camp knife. And it contains all of the frame data, the stun, the knockback, the startup. So all of that information is in there, all the combo data, any special properties. So the weapon rig, that references that data. And then of course, you have your graphical representation of the equipment. So if I go to Fred, I go to weapon holder right, I'm going to drag that. I don't, the game doesn't have to drag and drop. The game automatically does all this. I'm just doing it manually to show you what it does. I'm going to reset the position, and you can see because it references the weapon holder, it knows where to put the item, so the weapon goes into his hand, and then you have the rig, which determines all of the hitbox and frame data. So you can see, that's kind of where it would be. And yeah, that's how the weapon system works. If you change your equipment, then it would just delete that and it would bring in a new weapon. If you equip multiple weapons, your character will hold both of the weapons or all 3 or 4 of the weapons. It'll hide the weapon that you're not using and it'll make visible the weapon that you are using. And that's how the weapon system works. Radical. So Nintendo has advised me that as long as the shops are operating, I will be allowed to continue updating and patching the games. And they told me that the shop will be open for the foreseeable future. That means that they don't have plans to turn off the eShop at any point. So that means I can continue to update, fix, or add content to the games. Uh, yeah, I just drop a couple visual things in a couple of my. Uh, Sometimes I'll do a video and I'll have something innocuous sitting in the background, but it's actually um, a hint as to what's coming up. Is water really that easy to animate? Uh, it's complex. It's quite expensive on your hardware, so it's quite demanding. And in general, if you are a smaller studio or an independent developer, you're usually going to purchase a water system that some studio has spent thousands of hours creating a water rendering system, and then they'll sell that watering render solution to development studios, and then you implement that in your games. Generally, that's how things are done these days. Some people have very specific ways they want to implement water in their games, and again, in order to learn how to do that, it takes thousands of hours to build that expertise, and then it can take hundreds of hours to build and implement that particular water solution. So it is quite complex, but in general, developers wouldn't create their own water solutions. They would purchase a ready-made water solution, which is a much better use of time. Pablo. Yeah, unfortunately, homebrew with Unity, like I can't condone that because that goes against, the NDA, and I'm a registered developer. But using Unity for 3DS it's a nightmare. If you've seen any of the videos from the past where I've discussed using Unity and the difficulties, there's so many quirks that you have to deal with. There's a lot of stuff. that you have to keep in mind. There's a massive chunk of my brain now that's dedicated to memorizing all the weird stuff I have to do to trick Unity 3DS into working. Thanks. But what I can recommend is if you like RPGs and you'd like to put an RPG on the 3DS, you can use RPG Maker 2003. You can purchase that on Steam. I think it's usually around $12, $15 something. I can't remember. I think I got it for 15 or something. But RPG Maker 2003 can produce an RPG, and you can use Easy RPG on the 3DS, and you can create a homebrew game for the 3DS that way. We do have a Frontier Fighters Mini, and that's an RPG that I made with RPG Maker 2003, and you can play that on the 3DS. And also I did that so I could show people that, look, if you want to make your own RPG, it's not that hard to do. RPG Maker makes it easy to learn, and you don't have to do any programming yourself, and you can put a game that you made, you can put it on Homebrew on the 3DS, you can put it on the Vita, there's a bunch of other consoles. RetroArch can play RPG Maker 2003 games as well. Yeah, Easy RPG is fantastic. Okay, I really appreciate everyone hanging out on the stream. I think we're close to 3 hours now. I'll probably wrap it up now, and I'll let everyone get back to their day. It's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed chatting with everyone and just talking games. Yeah, I'll just keep working away on this. I should have Guardians and Metal Exterminators 100% finished. I'll share the soundtrack. I'll finish up the soundtrack this week, obviously, and then I'll share that with everyone. I'll post it, and then yeah. So thanks everyone. I appreciate hanging out, and it's been a lot of fun. So, okay, take care of yourselves. Be well. I'll post some videos. I'll share the soundtrack. Take care of yourselves. See you, everyone. Thanks, Radical R. See you, Pablo, Birdman, everyone else that's here. Thanks, Birdman. See you. Bye, everyone. Take care. And